Hi, I'm Frazer Andrade from a little village called Ambaji, situated in Margaon, which is in South Goa. And I have been in this lovely Andrade family since the past 28 years. And I'm not really aware of how long this family was in Goa. So yeah, by qualification, I'm a pharmacist, but by birth, I am a heritage enthusiast. I'll share with you an interesting story of mine. As a child, I was at my maternal place in Cernabati, in close by to Kolva, and there, if any child was at home, generally, if a visitor came to your place, what would they get for a child? They would generally get something like sweets or toys, maybe. But in my case, it was never toys nor sweets. It would be things like earthen utensils and agricultural implements that I always loved since my childhood. So that is the reason I don't have any toys from my childhood. Okay, I have all these pots and pans that I collected right from then. But I used to play with these things, and I liked being around things that were old and were from Goa. But I never thought of collecting as such any of these antiques. So all of this collection thing came into picture only in 2012 when I visited the Prince of Wales Museum situated in South Bombay. And there, when we went, we saw a couple of things on display, especially the crockery and some furnitures that were there. And my dad started telling me, we have similar things in our ancestral house. And I said, okay, I had never seen them before. And at that point of time, probably even if I had seen, I never paid close attention to these, because they were probably always there, and I was never bothered in, otherwise understanding their worth. And when I came back from the museum back home from Bombay, that is the time I started digging into my own house and my own loft of my ancestral house, and started discovering or rediscovering things that I had never ever seen before. So that is the time I actually thought, okay, if these things can be kept in a museum, they are of some worth. And even if they are not kept in a museum, they have a lot of worth, because they have a lot of sentimental value associated with them, because they have been in the house for generations together. And you always need not attach a materialistic value to these things. That is the time I personally feel the whole thing loses its charm. Then people want to sell these things. So that is something that I never looked at how much it's worth materialistically. For me, the sentimental value was more important than how much it costs in terms of money. So that was when I started preserving anything and everything that belonged to Goa. But then what made me move towards religious art is another story. I was never into religious art at that point of time. It was just anything that belonged to Goan houses I would preserve. But this incident, when during one morning, I went to my family chapel outside and happened to see a box or a bag, I can't recollect, but full of old statues that were just kept at the door outside the chapel. And I came home and asked my grandmother. I said, why would someone keep a bag full of statues outside our chapel? And then I got this answer from her saying that, if people didn't want religious statues, they would either burn them at home, or they would keep them at roadside crosses or chapels, so that they deteriorate by themselves. Since they were blessed, they could not be disposed of anywhere, so they would just keep them for nature to take its toll on them, or they would burn them. And that is the time I thought, okay, if this is happening in my village of Ambaji, what would be happening in the whole of Goa, for that matter, and in the whole of the world? But since I could not tackle the world, I said, at least Goa, let me take care of. And I directed myself towards religious art because of this incident, and also because of another incident that, I like cycling. Cycling is one of my hobbies. So on one of my cycling journeys to a place called Kunkoli, I saw a family burning some religious statues right in front of me. And only if I could reach there a few minutes before, maybe I could have saved them, but I could not do anything, though this thing happened right in front of my eyes. I was like helpless. So these two incidents directed me towards religious art. And that lot that I got at my chapel was the first set of images that I got into my collection of Christian art. And then gradually people came to know, they started gifting me. I, as a child, school going boy, never got pocket money because I used to take tiffin from home, so I never got pocket money for tiffin. But sometimes, when mama used to say, okay, today you eat outside, I won't give you tiffin, you can eat out. That is the day I would not actually eat out. I would save that money and keep it, and that way use it for buying things from people from different families, or sometimes restoring things that I already had. So this was always there in me as from school times and continues till date. So my family very well knows, if they give me something for food, it won't be for food, but it will be for an antique. Yeah, so that is what is known by them and is a known thing. Yes, so my collection includes pieces of Christian art from the early 17th to the first half of the 20th century. And how did I get these pieces? So some of these pieces came through dealers, antique dealers. The others came from different families who would want to sell these things. And I got in touch with these families, either my friends who introduced me to them, that's how I got to know them, and they offered me things. I also have shared appeals of my own on social media, requesting people not to dispose things first of all, but even still, if they feel that they would want to do away with their sacred art, not to dispose it off just like that, because by doing so they are wiping off a part of the art history of the state. So instead of that, I would try my best little bit what I could do to save it and rescue it from different people and save it. So that is how I meet or get to know people through social media and through the appeals. Also, a lot of priests who know me in my parish, or not my parish, I would say other parishes, who know me as a person and my work that I do, they would talk to people, because many a time people who don't want religious statues or religious things would inform the priest, asking them what to do or how to dispose them. So that is the time earlier priests would generally say you burn them at home, but now I go and tell the priest, you don't tell them to burn them, you tell them to meet Frazer, or you can give them my contact details. And that is how they would inform people and they would contact me. So these are the few ways I'm trying my best to reach out to people to save whatever things I can from them. But instead of getting them in my custody, I would rather be more happy if these things are preserved where they belong. Like things from a church are supposed to be preserved in the church. Things that belong to families are best in their homes. And it is something very important that every individual needs, who owns heritage homes, who own antiques at home. They need to understand that they are staying in a living museum rather. Okay, and take care of these things and not just value them for their materialistic value, but for the sentimental value. They need to understand that their parents, their grandparents, their great grandparents have touched these objects. Okay, with great love they were brought for the house, and if their descendants think of selling these things, okay, not paying attention to their sentiments, how bad would they feel about this? So all these things have to be taken into consideration, and all our antiques have to be preserved. In this way, we are also not wiping off a slice of our heritage. And also another thing I would like to highlight here is, in India we have this concept which is not so good, I would say. Like there is a thing that Indians don't believe in venerating broken idols. So if there is a damaged statue in the house, people would want to dispose it, thinking that it's a bad omen, right? So that thing is also seen in Christianity, because a lot of the Catholic population today are converts from the earlier faith, that is probably Hinduism. Okay, so this belief has also cropped into the neo converts then, and even till date you see people, if they have a broken statue in their altar at home, they would not want to keep it there. They would say we want to dispose it off, or bring something else, so in place of the damaged statue or icon that they have. So this is one thing that is resulting in a loss of our artistic heritage. And I think not only Catholics, but people from all faiths have to learn to value their sacred art that they have inherited, irrespective of whether it is in the best shape or if it's damaged. It is a part of the art heritage that we have inherited. as I was always into preservation and collection of religious art and other antiques from Goa, this is, I would say, not a cup of tea of everyone. So it was not a very easy and a smooth journey as a collector and as a heritage enthusiast, I would say, to acquire and collect these things in my home. So there were people who came and told me, Frazer, you're collecting scrap. You're a scrap dealer. They would call me a scrap dealer. They would call me they would say you're wasting your time on things that have no value absolutely. And what junk people are disposing is that you are collecting, and you're completely doing something that is a whole waste of time and is nothing of great importance to society. And I always told them, see, I know what I am doing and I would continue doing it. So I will listen to you, but it does not mean that I will implement what you're telling me to. I can't stop you from saying what you are saying, but I can stop myself from listening to you, is what I would tell them. And that is how I kept doing it, continuing what I was doing. So as far as my family is concerned, they have always been very supportive, at least in the initial years, in terms of the financial assistance, because at that time I was not earning. So I had to mostly depend on them for buying things, and they have helped me a lot in terms of financial support since the beginning. But I was never motivated to do more in this area or encouraged to do better in this field of collection of antiques. Rather, it was something that they looked at whenever I got a new piece. They said, oh, there is another addition to the house, and it's getting more difficult for us to live in. And sometimes I will get to hear, okay, one fine day you will have to leave the house to accommodate all your collection, and there won't be space for us to stay in. So all these things are going on, but then I know that I have a purpose intended and why I'm doing this, and definitely is not a waste of time. So this whole initiative is, I would say, this is all about self-motivation, and definitely a lot of people have also supported me in terms of moral support. A lot of friends from Goa and outside, where I studied, where I worked, who understood the importance of this. Even a couple of priests, not all priests I would say, but a couple of them actually understood the importance of me doing this and encouraged me to do what I'm doing. But there were, that is the problem, a lot of our priests who are custodians of these things also do not understand the importance of these things. That is the reason our churches are facing the most of, I would say, the dark times of the 21st century in terms of the loss of the sacred art. Because today, with something called as simplicity that is popping in, which is a good thing in the church, but in the name of simplicity, the elaborate decoration of the church that already exists is being discarded, because they say we don't need extra unnecessary embellishments of the church or decoration that is not needed. And there was in fact one priest who said to me, if God is there in your heart, you don't require art. So these were the words that I got to hear from quite a few people, which is very disturbing at times for me as an enthusiast trying to safeguard the religious heritage, both the tangible and the intangible. Now these things cannot be kept in a museum. Can you keep a song in a museum or a story in a museum? No. So for them to be living or alive and breathing, we need to practice or follow them. As long as the tradition is not causing harm to anyone, why not follow it? If it is disturbing the society in some way, then as well you need to stop it. But before discontinuing with a particular tradition, you need to document it as to why you are stopping it. You cannot stop something and so that there is no reference about it in the future. So documentation is a very important thing that we have to do for knowing what we have, what we had, and what our successors would inherit from us. So we as the current generation need to understand that we have borrowed these things from our coming generations, and we have to return these things back to them, just like our ancestors did to us. In general, India is one nation that is blessed with so much of heritage. You go to every state, you look at the brilliance that you see in the temple construction, the minute details. But we sadly in India don't value what we have and think everything is outside India. Okay, so what we have in India is bigger than a diamond mine, I would say, which is just neglected and allowed to rot. If we look at the amazing temples that we have, and very casually neglected. I do not know about other parts outside Goa, but in Goa, at least in the name of renovation, people just demolish these historical monuments to put up concrete structures, which is a blunder, I would say, because they are. It's like a crime. It's like a murder of heritage. So it's not. It's because you're killing something that's existing. So it's something very bad, and this awareness among people has to be created as to take care of this form of heritage. As far as sacred art is concerned, and since I am very much inclined towards Indo-Portuguese art, a lot of this kind of art is also found in Bombay, because Bombay was a Portuguese colony. Also, you find a lot of it in Cochin, in Calicut also, which has a lot of Portuguese history. And it's not that I don't like other forms of art. I do just not like it. I love it, but I try to concentrate on one niche so that I can give more or pay more attention to that particular area. And my area of interest is majorly Indo-Portuguese or Goan sacred art. Okay, so in addition to preserving antiques that were made in Goa, I also try to promote traditional artists who have been into making religious sculpture in Goa since the Portuguese era. But now, because the markets are flooded with plastic sacramentals, these poor artists do not get the business that they deserve to be getting. And hence, they have other thoughts in their minds to maybe discontinue what they are doing and move into and venture elsewhere to earn a living. So, I know of a couple of artists who are into making wooden sculpture, religious sculpture, and these artists have hardly any business today. They find it really difficult to manage their households, and I personally try to promote them so that when people buy things from them, they are also there are two good things that happen. The first thing is they are opting for natural materials for their religious idols. They are opting for greener gods, I would say. And secondly, the second good thing is they would support these traditional occupations. They would patronize these local artists, and they would also flourish. So two good things are happening simultaneously, and I think that we should all go for these greener gods, because again, coming to back to the not so good tradition in India that we don't like to keep broken statues. Now, say for example, if a plastic statue is broken, how would you dispose it? In Hinduism, I guess we immerse religious statues in water bodies. In Catholicism, we burn religious idols. Now, if a plastic idol is broken or damaged, would you burn would you burn plastic, or would you immerse it in water, thus polluting his own creation in his name? So that is another blunder. So when you opt for greener materials or sustainable materials, you are supporting them. That will be also appreciated by God. You are doing a good deed in supporting someone, helping someone grow and raise to better heights, and at the same time you're saving his environment by protecting it and opting for natural materials. So this is something we need to pay attention to, which we generally take for granted, opting for cheap and easily available plastic sacramentals from the markets around us. Okay, so there is one very funny saying that, with no harsh intentions to anyone or harsh feelings, there is this saying that if the dogs along the road bark at you, you don't bark back at the dog. So that is what I think, that if many people might just tell me what you're doing is rubbish and utter waste of time, I just ignore sometimes, because I have to do it, because I know what I am doing is right. So that is what keeps me going. That is one thing. And second thing is, there was once a collector who said, don't focus on collecting a bad painting of a famous painter, but rather buy something that is a masterpiece of an unknown artist. Now, all these works that I have collected down the years, unfortunately, the artists are not known and they're not documented anywhere that this piece was done by so and so. Just now, recently in the 21st century, most probably, that a little awareness is being created and people are kind of wanting to preserve this. This is a good thing that is happening, and in fact, it would be so good if I could educate people and tell them preserve the things that you have in their homes. So I recently had a session in one of the museums in Goa itself, where it was called the Confluences of Culture. The session was called Confluences of Culture, which highlighted the different, the different elements of other faiths that you see in the Christian art carved in Goa. What are the reasons for the loss of Christian art in Goa, and what are the correct ways of caring for the antiques that you have at home? Because many a times, sometimes in goodwill, we actually do more harm to the object we have. Okay, so we see a lot of that happening. There are proper ways to handle antiques. I don't call myself as a very learned conservator, but I am a conservator. I have some knowledge, and whatever help I can personally give, I would like to educate, especially the younger generation, who are the pillars of tomorrow and who are. As an enthusiast of Indo-Portuguese sacred art in Goa, I'd like to highlight a few things related to the sacred art in Goa. That is about syncretism and how different religious influences, not only Christian but influences of other faiths, you see strongly in the artworks created in Goa. To begin with, you can see this casket here with a cross, and inside you see this little baby Jesus. So he strongly represents images of Bal Krishna. Okay, so images like this, just like those in Hindu families given at the time of weddings to the bride, especially in the Brahmin and the Kshatriya community in the Hindu families. This same practice was observed even in Catholic Brahmin and Kshatriya families, where at the time of marriages you have the bride being gifted an image like this in the hope that she would conceive a boy child very soon. Okay, and these images were made in 4 materials, generally in wood, in bone, in ivory, or in silver. Now this one that you see here is in ivory, and if you look at it closely, you have typical Indian jewelry like the waistbands, the anklets, and the bracelets. Okay, and it's shown laid on a mattress lined with gold galleon or gold thread. Okay, and the casket is otherwise made in silver. Another example I would like to highlight is this infant sleeping here. If you look at him, he is shown wearing a kada made of copper. Now this kada need not necessarily be of the same age as that of the statue as such, because things like these that were accessories like the bangles and other jewelry could have been later additions to the piece by people who vowed to donate on fulfillment of certain vows that they had taken at a later stage. So it could have been added definitely at a later stage as well. So that is one very Indian thing that you see in this image. Also, if you pay attention to the details of the hair represent the curls as you see, like the snails seen on the head of Gautam Buddha, and represent enlightenment in both Buddhism and Christianity. So that is what you see here. Another example of the infant sleeping is here in this case, also with the typical Indian jewelry, that is the waistbands and the anklet. But this piece is not part of the wedding trousseau, but rather a part of the nativity set used for Christmas, with the bed which is called as the Cama de Sobricio, which is the bed, 4-poster bed made in rosewood, and the flowers made of silver with a golden dot in the center, representing local flowers from Goa called as parijat. So parijats are local flowers used in Hindu rituals and pujas, but interestingly shown in a Christian piece here, with again with velvet cushions and a pillow and a silver crown adorning the headboard of the bed. The rest of the decoration is all made in crochet and embellished with gold garland. And look at this, how Indian, like a lotus in full bloom, inverted vase in wood. So this is a late 18th century monstrance from, it would have been Italian in origin, but I call it Goan because it was brought into Goa after Goa was created. So anything prior to 1510 would not be called as Goan because Goa as such did not exist prior to 1510. Goa came to be known as Goa only after the Portuguese came here, and only those things that came into Goa post 1510 can be referred to as Goan. Okay, so this is one piece, but made in Italy most likely. The metal used is brass, silver, and glass. So these are glass semi-precious stones, and the shaft, the angel, is made in silver. Yeah, so today in the name of conservation, many a times people who are not so much aware, they tend to do more of bad to the object than good in goodwill though. So at this point I would like to say whenever you have something old at home, try to consult a professional person as to how to go about with the conservation of the works that you have, because sometimes with goodwill sometimes we tend to do harm to the piece that we have. So it is always good not to do something than to do something in the wrong way. Okay, so for example, one of the things that we need to follow while we undertake conservation is reversibility. Whatever you do has to be reversible and documented. The youth that many a times instigate their parents to do away with the old stuff, thinking that it's outdated, because many of the youth themselves have told me you're outdated. Okay, and I belonging to the category of the youth would urge my dear friends not to dispose whatever you have inherited from your loving and caring grandparents. Okay, take care of it for posterity and preserve what you have, because you're living in a living museum. Okay, and you are part of it, so you have to take the legacy further. And still, however, if you think that you don't want, though I have asked and requested you to do it, still if you would want to do away with any religious art, especially if you have any old statues, you can feel free to contact me. I will take them from you and safeguard them in my collection. Okay, but once again requesting you to preserve them in your home itself. Okay, thank you so much.